it should start sending it. All right, we on.
Max, are we on?
We're
are we
on,
live?
we're on, but it's private. I just wanted to make
okay.
sure everything is cooking. But it looks like we're good, so I guess I'm gonna... Where is the private and public thing? Why do I not see it? Do I have to like end it and then read? Oh no, here, visibility. Okay.
Do you have the link to the video?
Yeah. Yes. Here it is. I will text it to you immediately. There you go. But let me make it public and then we'll be good. All right, done. Save. I'm really gonna... You might be the one that like asks me questions from the chat because it's gonna be like a whole time hopping.
Yeah, I'll do that. That's cool.
Cool. Let me put on headphones so I don't bleed. Hello.
Are people on? Are we there? Have we arrived?
Yeah, we got 3 viewers.
Yahoo!
All right.
I'm gonna post that link on the Twitter.
I guess I'm just gonna play the song.
Yeah, just start playing the song, dude.
And then
hopefully we don't, get copyright grabbed.
It's fine. I'm gonna pull the volume down so I could like hear everything.
Feeling is something else, but seeing is worth our while. And we were matching in tinted red. Truth be told, I could have never guessed. And I've been saying all day and night, alright, that there's a thing about us I like. And I've been saying all day and night, alright, that there's a thing about us I like.
Alright.
Feel it on your conscience, superpowerful, tugging heartstrings.
All right. Wow. Okay. So hello. We are Slenderbodies. If you guys know of us and you're interested in hearing about how how we create some of the music that we create, we want to start doing some of these session breakdowns where we really go into the audio engineering behind it and really start to dive deep and create what we create. If you guys have any questions, just throw them in the chat and we can break it down. I'm already seeing a couple coming in. I'd love to answer them, or we'd love to answer them. And yeah, so I guess like a lot of our music is really based on audio. So like as you'll see in the project, like everything that we work with and work on is like very audio based. There's not a lot of MIDI that we use. Like even the drums and stuff, like when you're going through them, is all like live tracked and placed. If we're using samples, they're placed. If if it's live drums, then it's actually recorded live drums. And I'll start to solo these things like one by one, and we can kind of break through like what I did in terms of processing and how we decide to make some of our sounds. So we can kind of start from the beginning, and you can kind of hear the like kind of the main riff of the song. Is like this 4-chord progression. That's fairly simple in terms of the processing. Like we have a little bit of like compression expander. Like one of the things that I love to do across like all of our music is throw an expander on anything live that's like guitars or vocals or anything. It just feels like I'm gating it, but it doesn't sound as intense. It's a little more natural between between the silences. You're not feeling like cut every time you're playing. It's more you get a little bit more of a natural feel to it. And then once you have reverb on there, it really softens even the expansion tone, so you get like a really nice fluid tone without getting any of the noise.
And Max, did this have Valhalla on it, or had we not started working with that yet?
We weren't working with Valhalla. I literally have Space Designer, which is a stock Logic thing. I'm using Midnight Plate with, you know, a really low, you know, dry wet ratio.
Right on.
Yeah. So we're a big fan of all the Waves plugins. So like our compressor is great on guitars. It sounds really good. And then I've been playing a lot with some of the Brainworks stuff, or a lot of the stuff from Plugin Alliance is absolutely amazing. It's a great subscription service. Like I literally cannot live without these plugins anymore. I use them everywhere. So once you start adding some other guitars in here, like once you get into the main drop, so this is really just like a lot of different guitars doing different things, but it just gives us a little bit more of a stereo image. Some more low end comes into the guitars, and you really start to get a little bit more space surrounding the guitars, and you get a little more activity. So and then from there, you know, we can start looking into like the bass that comes in with it, and this is a live bass that is just played. Really simple processing on this one. Again, Plugin Alliance, the Ampeg V4B is an absolutely amazing bass amp. Go ahead.
I was gonna say there's a feature on there which has an actual gate built into the plugin, which we use a ton to get like a really tight bass sound.
Right there.
Yeah. Yep, that's it.
It's really amazing. It does a really great job. So a lot of our instruments that we play, we don't really use amps. A lot of them is run directly through a preamp system, usually something from UA, like an LA610 or like a 4710D, and that's kind of what we use to track all of our instrumentation through. There's an interesting question. Is there any device that I can hook up my guitar to my PC? I would say the best investment that you can put in is to just get an audio interface that's going to give you an audio analog to digital and digital to analog conversion. So look at like the Focusrite 2i2 is very inexpensive. It's an amazing starter interface, and it's like $100 or like $150, like something.
Yeah, somewhere in there. It's super affordable, and the versions have gotten better. Like I had a generation that was, you know, a year or two ago, and it actually picked up a lot of noise at the time. But since then, I bought a newer version, and the way they've been able to ground a lot of their connections inside the box is a lot better now.
Yeah, they sound amazing. So like get one of those, and then you could pretty much plug your guitar directly into that, and you know, give yourself the gain, and then you can do more processing in the box at that point. Yeah, so going from the bass, maybe let's mute these guitars for a second. I really want to just like play the bass and the drums that come in at this moment. So a lot of our music, I feel like, really bounces around like the kick and the bass and the drums just really playing together to create this really interesting rhythmic section. And let me break down some of this like drum stuff, because I feel like there's a lot going on this song. So this track actually started by us tracking 2 snap tracks of it just being this is literally just like, and you know, using some really basic things. Again, the expander sounds really great, and you can hear how I'm using a little bit of dynamics in the snap. So if you're going and you're like snapping louder on the main one, and then I'm using the expander to actually allow that to cut through. So like, and you can hear how it just starts to like cut through whenever that louder snap comes in, and that's hitting on the 2s and 4s. And then you can start to accentuate that with some samples that you layer. And that's kind of like just to give it a little bit more of a consistency rather than the more organic feel. And then you layer that with a little bit more texture. And this is a guitar actually that we're using in the drums, which is really cool. It's just got the Sound Toys, a lot of Sound Toy stuff on it, like, which we love the Sound Toy stuff. Crystallizer is really amazing to get these really wavy stuff. I can kind of show you what it actually does if I pull it off the project, and as you can hear, That's just the guitar, and it's just like, you know, little plucky string sounds, and you add it. And it just gives you this like plucky, crystally like texture on it that sounds really cool, and it's just like really interesting. And then we're also using Microshift, which is one of my favorite plugins of all time. That really just gives you like stereo width, and you can throw a lot of the sound to the sides, which frees up room for anything that's happening in the middle, be it like snaps or snares or kicks, bass, all the stuff that's living in the middle. This pushes it to the side, gives you a better stereo image. So here's a great example. With it off, you can hear how's there, and then you open it up, and it sits like a little bit wider. Just like some interesting stuff, just to give it a little bit more of an organic character. So once you bring all the drums in this section, so it's all sample drums, but it's all audio based. We're not really like cutting, you know, we're not tracking this live, though we do have a live drum kit that I'll get to in a little bit that actually layers onto these drums later on into the song.
Yeah, our MO with all of what we create, which I'm sure y'all are picking up on, is again that blend of organic and digital. So that's coming very recently, is adding a live kit that Max plays on a lot of our stuff, as well as, you know, layering the digital samples on top of it.
Yeah. Somebody asked, what's your favorite expansion plugins? I literally use the Logic expander. It does the cleanest job. I've never had a need to use anything else, though. Lately, I've been messing around with, let me see if I used it on this project. I believe I saw it somewhere. So I wanted to like show you guys here. So when you look at the CLA Mix Hub, it's basically like a channel strip. And I want to say it's based on an SSL board, but I'm not 100% certain about that. But essentially, there's like a gain expander and ducker on here. I actually love the expander on it. It does a really good job of like kind of ducking the audio, and you can kind of see. And you can see how it's like just kind of bouncing with the points on the with the impact of the snaps. Cool. Should we take a look at some of these like vocal things that kind of come in the beginning?
Yeah, totally. I feel like that's going to be huge for people to see the processing on them.
It's so simple, and that's kind of like one of the beauties of this is like, you know, there's a little bit of tune on it just to give you, you know, the inflections, and then we got 2 delays and a plate reverb on here. Certain songs, like I kind of like to do a blend of like putting like effects on inserts and using effects on buses. It really depends on what I'm using it for. Generally, I feel like the main lead vocals that I do will be dry, and then I'll use bussing so I can actually control the reverb that's happening. But on stuff like this, that's a little bit more just feels just a little more ambient, then I'd like to throw it on the insert and process all of it together as one group, and it almost feels like I'm in one whole bus with the vocals in there together.
Yeah, and we're almost treating that vocal as an instrument with the effects that we're adding to it. You know, it's as if we were plugging in one of our guitars to like a pedal or any of the other kind of effect inserts like the sound toys that we're running in this.
Yeah. Cool. So, you know, again, sound toy stuff, Echo Boys, they sound absolutely amazing. They're the thing that gives it your little like, you know, if I take them off, yeah. So you don't really get any of that texture or width. It's just like really a single note. But once you add these on, you get this width and beauty, like, and the vocals are kind of like floating around in your head and just gives a sense of space. And then this was really, I'm pretty sure this was part of the demo, and we just kept it because I thought it sounded so interesting and like bare. And this is really just like a, again, it's like for feel, it's for ambience, it's just to give like the main melody on top and like to give you some sort of like tag.
Yeah, I'm caught up in the beauty of it all.
So, and that kind of is like what leads into the song. And here's an interesting thing that we did with these feels like I took it, and it's just like some, just like different like, you know, vocal elements and stuff, just to give yourself a little bit more texture before you actually land into the verse. And that's when everything strips back and you really tighten up into into your verse section.
Feeling is something else, but seeing is worth our while. And we want matching in tinted red.
So that was kind of an interesting thing I wanted to like point out for a second that I thought was like fun to do. What happens here is I actually have a formatted version of the same line there going in. So, and what happens is I fade between them. So when you have them together, it almost feels like.
Matching in tinted red.
So you just get this like thickness at the end of the word red, which is just like a fun thing to do, just to give yourself a little bit more character in the mix. And you know, it's just like a really fun trick. It adds interest, and you're like, whoa, like that was like weird. I can't tell if that was like normal or not. So another thing I want to feature is the synth bass that Crooked Colors did. This was like an awesome feature from them.
Yeah, this was a huge part of this song coming together was Leon passing this this bass line to us. It just really.
And then his Prophet pad. I feel like it really builds the bass for like the whole verse section. So once you have it in there, like.
Feeling is something else, but seeing is worth our while. And we want matching
And then you hear the, which it like pitches down, which is really interesting.
I could have never guessed.
Then there's the, and that feel vocal comes back in. And then there's the chord vocals that come in here, which is really just 3 layers of pretty much the same thing being played. I think this one's a little bit different. It's like plucked. Yeah, so they're just arpeggios of the chords, and then the other 2 are just like clean strums that has a little fade in on it, so you'll notice how it. And there's 2 layers. They're slightly panned off to the sides just to give you the stereo image. And together you get this really cool texture. Cool. So, you know, once you layer that with the vocals, we got a lead and 2 doubles.
There's a thing about us I like. And I've been saying all day and night. Alright. There's a thing about us I like. Can you feel it? Are you conscious?
Okay, so these are obviously very simple. Like the processing on the vocals, a lot of it is, you know, a lot more simple than I feel like you know, we usually let on to be. Like a lot of the processing really comes from once I start working in the bus and I start to really mold all the vocals together, which we'll go through a little bit more particularly. But I wanted to kind of just break down what I have on the main track is just like a little bit of tune, a de-esser, just to like lose some of the like sharp S's when you know.
And I've been saying all day and night.
And that's just single vocal, and you add the.
There's a thing about us I like. Yeah.
And so now you hear like the few layers.
And I've been saying all day and night. Alright. That there's a thing about us I like.
And if you have it just with the guitars, you kind of feel the.
And I've been saying all day and night. Alright.
And you have the echo that kind of follows the beat.
And I've been saying all day and night.
And you bring in the octave low.
That there's a thing about us I like. Can you feel it?
And before we move on, just with those first ones, what I think Max does really well is he's super particular about how he layers vocals. So you have that really more whispery texture on that first one up top there, and then the other 2 have a little bit more presence to them, and that's how we're able to make, you know, his vocal tones sound so present while also so soft. That's been something we've been kind of molding and engineering since the very beginning of this project.
Yeah. Cool. And then you can start bringing in some of the harmonies, which are so soft and
And I've
just.
been saying all day and night.
Which if I solo that out, it's just like a really just simple.
Saying all day and night.
So subtle, really losing a lot of the
Thing about us I like.
a lot of the consonants are just kind of being rolled off because I already have the main consonants that I need from the lead vocal. I'm just trying to get the harmonic elements like tucked in there. And then
Can you feel it? Are you conscious?
so really subtle, like not supposed to be anything like super powerful, haha. But
Haha.
Can you feel it on your conscience?
I don't remember which one was the one that we decided to do a belt layer on this one, and by belting I mean like really singing with like full chest voice rather than like having like the really thin.
Can you feel it?
So that's like really low under there. And then I think I have 2 layers here of like just like
Can you feel it on your conscience? Super powerful, tugging heartstrings.
so those are kind of just 2 layers of like the lead that's like really like the bell, and that's kind of what you hear come in the second section. Like,
Can you feel it on your conscience? Super powerful, tugging heartstrings.
and all the while you still have the really thin like kind of holding like the central theme of the song together in the chorus. Cool. And then I do also want to point out this Crooked Colors edition, which is really awesome. It's a little Juno chorus synth that just kind of swells in. Feels really good. It just gives you like that impact, with the bass you can... Sounds really cool. And I love that layer. I wanted to jump over and talk about the drums a little bit, because I don't really think I did pretty much no processing on this. I spread it a little bit, which honestly I do want to talk about this plugin a little bit because it's super cool. It's called Stereo Spread, and this is a Logic plugin as well. I think you just find it in Imaging, Stereo Spread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And essentially what it allows you to do is to pan certain frequencies in the frequency spectrum either left or right. And I actually think it helps so much with clearing the space in the middle of the in the middle of the stereo spectrum by pushing kind of the mids somewhere from like 100 to, what is that, like 3K, kind of like this like middle ballpark, and you push everything like partially left and right, and it just gives you the space. Like, I don't know if you'll be able to tell just through here, but if I took this off and you turn it on, and it almost just like pushes some of the mids over to the side, which is just like a really good way to like help clear the center, so like it doesn't battle with the vocals.
Feel it on your conscience. Super powerful, tugging heartstrings. Seeing is something else.
Okay, so we okay, before we get into the verse, I did want to talk about the drums a little bit. Also, yeah, I realized, I think, do you guys see the plugins when we open them, or are they just like not showing up? Like, if I were to open this plugin right now,
Yeah, I think we have to change the OBS settings.
Okay.
So that might be a next time kind of experience if we have to, unless you can.
I might be able to just like flip. Well, yeah, I might be able to. You know what I could do? Oh, that might be a little complicated, but I can try to like add a. So let's try it. Yeah, I guess I don't see it. I feel like it should be showing up, but maybe it doesn't, huh?
Yeah, we might just have to cast the whole screen next time.
The whole screen. Okay.
Or, like, portion it out, but we'll figure it out. That's okay. We can just keep talking about it.
Totally. Sick. Okay, cool. So basically, yeah, I wanted to dive into the drums a little bit because these are live drums. I literally have a kit right over here. And these are those drums. Just a really simple feel. And it's just to really get the, like, match up with the other drums. So once you add them together, you get this. So the live drums just really help to accentuate the production drums, which are these. you add them together and you get.
Can you talk a little bit about the saturation that you placed on them? Because I feel like that's super crucial.
Okay. Yeah, let's go through it. So, in terms of the kick drum, I can just solo this out. Obviously, this was played as a full kit. So what I'm doing with the kick drum, just to really get it to cut, is I'm using a channel strip. It's a SSL channel strip, and it's heavily gated. So if I took this off, you can hear how all the other drums start to bleed in. But once I have this in, it's just, you really are just getting that kick on it. And that allows me to process it exactly how I want. So I took a little bit of low end off, and the reason I did that is because I have another kick over here that's really, you know, it gives me that low end that I want. So I don't want them really overlapping on each other and giving me any sort of weird warbles. So I'm just taking some of the low end out of there, some of the sub bass, and just allowing for the other kick to fill that space. And then I'm using this SPL Transient Designer that just helps me tighten up the kick, just so it's not like bleeding out too long and the decay is really nice and tight. So if I take it off, you'll kind of hear I have a little bit more like and it just like ends, but once you have it on, it just tightens everything up even more. And that's all I really need for this song, is because the drums are so busy that I don't want like a single drum decaying too long and taking up too much room. And then, you know, we have the snare, very, very simple. It's just EQ and limiter and a little bit of reverb on there. And then we go from here over here. And this is the overhead. And literally, I have it mic'd with 3 different mics. And it's just this one is the overhead. So it's single overhead, single snare, single kick mic. It's a really simple setup. And this just gives me, the reason I have the sounding wide is because of Microshift, which again, one of my favorite plugins. And it just gives me that width that I need. So I don't really have to mic with 2 different overhead mics. Yeah. So that's kind of like gives the thing, and then gives us the basic sounds. And then once you get it in here, then I'm using Cla Drums, which is, you know, just to get some of the EQ and compression on it. I turn everything else off, and it just gives like a really nice, you see if I turn it off, it just helps to balance out the drums, give me less low end, more high end, you know, flatten everything out a little bit. And then this is CLA mixed down, which gives me a little bit more like glue, a little bit more of an EQ power. So it's really like a lot of chain of EQs, compression, a little bit of saturation. Another EQ, another transient designer to really glue the whole drum kit together. And then we got a compressor over here, which this is a great compressor. It's kind of like the SSL compressor, like an SSL bus compressor, if you guys have ever used one of those. And it's just, again, glue the drums up even more EQ. And what I'm doing over here is I'm notching out a frequency that was really intense. So, you know, if you hear, it was just a frequency that was cutting through the mix in a weird way. So it's just notched out. More EQ. And then we have, this is a really cool thing. It's called a noise suppressor. It's from Waves. And it just helps get rid of some like excess noise or hiss or anything that you have. So if I took it off, it's a really subtle effect because I pretty much have it at like 0, but it just gives you, it just tightens up some of the space just a hair. And then I top it off with a limiter just to like keep everything more flat. So it's just a lot of compression and EQ to make the drums sound as flat as possible. These drums that I have are really, really muted, so I'm trying to get as tight of a sound as I can out of them, and I'm just trying to accentuate that even more in the post-production. Okay, so let's dive into the second verse, which is the Crooked Colors verse. Process very similarly to my vocals. Dancing in the Milky Way. Don't let it stop, wanna be the only one. So I actually have us layered on the second half of this, which is really cool, and like all these like harmonies. Dancing in the Milky Way. So if you listen to, these are just some vocal layers that I have of mine in here. Dancing in the Milky Way. Just like some really different harmonies just to give you this like really stretchy space-like feeling.
And we were dancing in the Milky Way.
And those are some Crooked Colors vocals. There's like the background vocals, and then you tie them together with these lead vocals. Again, really simple processing. I actually
dancing in the Milky Way.
I don't really know how they processed their vocals prior to sending it to us. It was very simple when they sent it to us, so I'm assuming it was just some compression and EQ just to get it to sound right. And yeah, from there it leads into this.
Don't let it stop, I wanna be the only one.
That was really cool. This is another Crooked Colors edition. It's just like this like swell. You can feel the cutoff opening up. It's a cool analog synth thing. And it's just a nice texture leading into the second pre-chorus.
And I've been saying all day and night.
Very similar to the first one.
That there's a thing about us I like.
Except we're just adding these vocals from Crooked Colors over here, which I, processed with like a really crazy delay, just to give us like, again, stretchy feeling, filling the space, making it just feel a little different coming into the second hook.
Think about us I like. And I've been saying all day and night. Alright. That there's a thing about us I like. Can you feel it? On your conscience. Superpowerful.
And then we come back in with the repeat hook.
And I've been saying all day and night. Alright.
And over here we start to really introduce a bunch of like different vocals. So if I sold the vocals, like there's just a bunch of random things of me just like saying random whatever, like you'll hear.
And I've been saying all day and night.
It's,
Alright. That there's a thing about us I like. Can you feel it? On your conscience. Super powerful. Tugging heartstrings.
so it's really just to start filling the space, make it feel a little different, rise up the energy. You're really trying to like make it feel big, intense, and just like really interesting. So from there we go into this like post-chorus section where there's a chord change, which is an implied chord change because the bass line changes, and then you have this. So it's with the bass. And then this is a really cool Crooked Colors, like this is a really cool layer, and that actually layers really nicely with this vocal that I had from previous. So it's actually like really amazing like how well our vocals blend together in this whole track. So there's a lot of just like different vocals of ours just like falling over each other, and I think that has a really interesting and special feeling behind it. So
And I've been saying all day and night. Alright. That there's a thing about us I like. Can you feel it? On your conscience. Super powerful. Tugging heartstrings.
and so the ending here, there's just a few differences where I actually stack some more harmonies over like all the feel it on your so like
Can you feel it?
so just like big like 9th harmonies and 11th harmonies, just like really filling that whole thing just to get the can you feel it, and you just get this like really cool like just opening at the end. It's just like big and impactful. You have like a half pre and it comes straight into the second portion.
Can you feel it? On your conscience. Super powerful. Tugging heartstrings.
I guess we could break down just like a few guitars that get added here. So it's like just to give it more texture, here's what the hook chord's on it. Really cool sounding guitar layers all over. It even all over the bridge as well. And again, the processing is so simple. It really is about how it's played, and then just keeping it as simple and as clean and natural as possible without anything sticking out. Making sure you get all your cuts and fades correct so there's no like clicks or pops anywhere in between them. And that kind of like really ties together the guitars and just getting some layers together, not making it too busy, but interesting enough. So this is the second verse, which is kind of cool. So it takes that lead, that intro thing that we have, this thing, and just process it a little differently, make it thinner, add a little more verb, and just almost like sets it more in the background for the second verse, just to give you like cool. I'm like trying to think if there's like anything else that's like super interesting that I wanted to like show, or like any other like points. I guess I want to dive into a little bit of the processing of the vocals on the bus area. Do we have any like... Okay, so when listening to like the vocals here, let's go to the...
And I've been saying all...
Yeah.
And I've been...
Alright, we'll do it here.
And I've been saying all day and night.
So we have different EQs, limiters, EQ, and then we have de-essers. My favorite de-esser is the RX8 de-esser or RX7. Doesn't really matter what version you have, but they sound phenomenal. They do such a good job of catching everything that you needed to catch. And then there's a plugin called Balancer, which is actually a really interesting free plugin from Focusrite that essentially listens to your music and like auto EQs it based on what you want it to EQ to. So sometimes that's really helpful when you're like, you just want to give something a different feel, and you don't want to give it too much color, but you just want it to be like, okay, like how do I make this sit in the mix differently? Sometimes I'll just throw a balancer on there, let it listen to it for a second, and then it'll give you a really interesting EQ curve, and you can go with it, or you can adjust it how you want at that point. And I love that. More EQs, lots more EQs, and just cap it off with a limiter. So a lot of it is really just based on molding the audio and different EQ. The reason I have so many different EQs going on is because different EQs have different character to them, and I can tackle different things that I'm hearing with certain EQs. So if I'm like, okay, I have too much mids on this certain vocal, I'm going to use like the PwigTech mid EQ from Waves. If I'm going with something more surgical, then I'll probably use ProQ from FabFilter. And I also just love the channel EQ from Logic. It just sounds really great, and it's really simple and quick, so I'll use that all the time for more basic EQing.
And what people aren't seeing right now is also the LA610 has an EQ option. So some of the processing is actually happening as the signal enters the DAW, as well as some compression. And so that really contributes to the sound as well.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And then I guess I'll talk a little bit about what I have on the master bus just to glue it all together. And if anything, I could even just take everything off, and you guys can really listen to like what the master bus does to it.
If you ever wonder what mastering does, you're about to find out. I feel like that's a common question.
Yeah. So I'm leaving this this on. You guys can't see it, but it's basically just like a channel strip that just allows me to pull the volume down. So the only reason I have that on there is so I can have the volume a little lower, so like my voice doesn't get over, just blasted through by the song. But just so you can hear like what it does. So this is like nothing on it.
And I've been saying all day and night.
And we can start to add. So first, bring the volume down so I have headroom. EQ a little bit. This is a really cool like analog design thing. And you can hear that I have like a lot of levels are starting to feel a little bit more out of whack. Like what mastering really does, or just like putting something on your bus, your master bus, to just like help glue it all together, does exactly that. It just like helps glue it all together. It helps give you like a cohesive piece of music rather than having things popping out or being too loud or too quiet. And then I have some multi-band compression from Fat Filter. And then I have this wonderful plugin called Event Horizon by Stillwell Audio. It's essentially just a limiter and a soft clipper, and I'll just use a little bit of it because it just gives it so much character. It helps flatten out the song a little bit, and it just is awesome. There, you can get a free evaluation copy. You guys should definitely check it out. It's awesome.
Shouts out Stillwell Audio. Y'all are the best.
Yeah, and then and then I end off the chain with Ozone 9, and then Stackless Master Dash.
So yeah, I mean, sorry. The basic principle of what we were trying to do is, you EQ, you compress, and when you compress, everything, the signal gets squashed down, and so some frequencies will start to pop out. So you got to kind of adjust them as you go along, and then further compress and glue. And you want all of your, as Max was saying, all your tracks to glue together.
Yeah, and simultaneously, you don't want to bring out any harshness and everything. So as you compress and you make the song louder, you might start to hear things pop out. You might even start to introduce some unwanted distortion, because I think saturation and distortion are two different things. You might start to introduce some unwanted distortion in your low end, like digital clipping, and that doesn't sound very good. So you really want to go in and, adjust your sub bass frequencies and really like get it to glue together and like feel really cohesive, saturated, forward and flat, while feeling, open and dynamic. You don't want it overly squashed. You want it nice and open and dynamic. You want it to breathe. But at the same time, you don't want anything to be falling too quiet or too loud or like distorting.
Max, in Ozone 9 on this project, were you using the stereo imager that they have or no?
Yeah. So I'm using the imager that they have. Like, I wish I could show it to you guys. We'll definitely have that working next time, but
that's an important step as well, as you're compensating and making all of these compression adjustments on the master bus. You also want to be attentive to your stereo image, and that's why Ozone 9 is great, is because it's part of their bundle. It's part of their UI that has all that stuff together, and so you can adjust the stereo image and spread certain frequency ranges in any way you want.
Yeah, totally. It's an awesome plugin. I mean, the whole Ozone suite is amazing. It's great to to get your songs feeling a little bit bigger and better. And I feel like that's pretty much the rundown of the project. I don't know if you guys have any other questions that you want answering.
Yeah, and I mean, to fill in just how this song was like created in real time, this was all done over Zoom, and I don't think Max has listened to on there anymore, but we were using this plugin that actually lets you stream audio from one DAW like Logic to another person's DAW, like Cricket Colors was using Ableton. So we were all in a Zoom meeting just like Max and I are now, and then we were streaming Max's DAW to Cricket Colors and my DAW, since Max and I weren't together. And that's just a really unique experience, and we were able to tackle a lot of the songwriting as we arranged the track, kind of starting from that first guitar riff that comes in the intro, and just arrange it out. And then all the while we're just kind of toying with melodies, which ended up making the final cut in a lot of cases. Yeah. So it was a very unique songwriting process.
It was really cool. And I'm, super fun. They're great guys to work with. And if you guys hadn't heard of them prior, definitely check out some of their other music. We've been fans for a long time, and it was definitely awesome to work with them. And we're really happy that we were able to come out with this song for you guys to enjoy. That was an awesome collaboration.
Do we have more questions? You can ask about, anything else that maybe didn't come up in this project, or something you just had general questions about in terms of audio engineering that you feel like you might want help with, or literally anything.
Yeah.
Ooh, an acoustic version? Maybe, Max, hey?
Yeah, maybe. We've been thinking about it, so who's to say?
And that's actually, that's funny that was mentioned, is because, when we go back to just the guitars in this project, something we always strive for, and this I think really came out of writing Komorebi together, was we want it to be able to be played just on two guitars and still have the same impact from a songwriting perspective. And so we try to do that with the layers, where these are, they're fundamentally different layers. As Max was saying, one occupies the high end, one occupies the low end, and they're doing different things rhythmically, but they sound good together. And if we stripped all of the drums, all the bass, all of the vocal layers away, you would still have the song that is recognizable from
Absolutely.
this version.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Plugins. What plugins?
All of them.
All
So
of
this one, as we said, I don't know if you might have been a little late to the stream, which is totally fine, because this is going to live on our YouTube forever, so you can always go back and watch a part if you missed it. But yeah, a lot of this project was made primarily using Waves plugins, Plugin Alliance plugins, especially like the Brainworks stuff. They have a big bundle that has a bunch of different boutique companies that contribute to it, as well as the stock Logic plugins. And specifically stock Logic plugins, like those are the ones that come with the program. So if you bought Logic and you have a Mac, you're gonna have access to these, and these are plugins we still use to this day. Max is almost 15 years into producing or something, and
Maybe not that much. Maybe like 10, but
I can exaggerate.
Yeah.
We like. It's a fun lie. It's a positive lie. I'm hyping you up.
Hype me up, dude. I love the hype.
And yeah, we still use these to this day, and they sound great. And Logic updates them all the time to be better, which is great.
And they add new plugins sometimes. Like they've added really cool reverbs, like Chroma Verb, and all sorts of like really interesting. They've changed the way that their samplers work, and it's honestly all amazing. So.
Oh, I know what I have a question, Max.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk. Can we talk about the different reverb choices, or is it just Space Designer across the board, and what we've learned about reverb through this project, and how we experimented with, just adding delays versus adding reverbs?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm probably using Space Designer and Little Plate across this project. I don't think I'm using anything else, but I am using a lot of delays, like mostly I would say Echo Boy, but some Crystallizer, and I don't know if I use Timeless on this, but that's also another really amazing plugin. Yeah, it's just a lot of Echo Boy on this project, because
God bless it.
It was, yeah, it's just a great plugin, great reverb, or great delay, and yeah, I think every reverb serves its own purpose. Little Plate is quick and easy, sounds good on almost anything. Usually
it's very full sounding.
Usually when we're working on demos, I would throw Little Plate on it because I just know it's going to perform. But it tends to be a little bit harder to mix with on the back end, which is what I've noticed. Space Designer is kind of the opposite. I almost feel like it doesn't sound as good from the get-go. Still sounds really great, like don't get me wrong. Doesn't sound as good from the get-go, but once you get it really dialed in, I almost say that it sounds better than Little Plate on or on the tail end of the production once you're really into mixing and mastering.
And that's also because Space Designer it's from impulse responses. It's people actually went out and recorded real spaces and used impulse response recording to make that reverb. So you're having emulation of spaces that actually exist, whereas Little Plate it's supposed to be like a analog spring reverb emulation. So you're a little bit more limited in what you can do and how you can manipulate it. It's literally two knobs. So
yeah. Little Plate, I mean, it's a plate reverb emulation, but yeah, it's
sorry, not spring. My bad.
No, you're good. So it's a plate reverb, so you really are limited by it. I would open the plugin, but I kind of can't. But that'll definitely work next time. But basically what I'm trying to say is like with Space Designer, you have a lot more flexibility as to what you can do with it. It also gives you a lot more options to choose from, and it tends to sound more realistic because of impulse responses. So they're really great. I use them pretty freely, and I love how they sound. And
I think there's a lot to be said, and this is something we've learned over the years, because so much of our early music was so saturated with reverb. Learning what reverb does what best and using each with kind of in a way like a surgical intention is really important. Like, now we use a lot of Valhalla reverb plugins, but each reverb has what it's what it could be used best for, and it's about not only what sounds best when it's isolated, but what suits the mix best. And so that's why we use delays sometimes, is because you can make a delay fit your mix easier in a more surgical manner.
Yeah, and what's interesting actually with the Valhalla plugins, like one of my favorite ones that I use is Supermassive, which is technically a delay rather than a reverb, and it just allows you to stretch your delays into such small portions of time that you start to get this like diffusion tone that extends out into a tail, and it sounds like a reverb, but it gives you a lot more control over how long it's going to be, what kind of frequencies you're going to take, and it just sounds really interesting and really amazing. So I definitely recommend checking it out. I'm pretty sure Supermassive is free, so go download it. Any projects coming in the future? Yes, absolutely. Lots of projects coming in the future, and we'll be doing a lot more of these. If you guys are interested, we could start doing these breakdowns of like older songs that we have, and I think that'd be really cool if you guys are interested in like seeing the project for Belong or Senses or Anemone or Gray or whatever. God, I need to like dig up the Gray project. That's probably like,
Dude, who even knows where that is?
lost in the abyss of one of my hard drives.
Yeah. And knowing us, it was probably named something like vanilla
Dude,
ice cream or something.
I have, it's like on the tip of my tongue what it was named. It was called I'm blanking right now. I need to like think about it. I kind of remember what it was called, but I just can't. It wasn't called like Solitude, but it was like something like Solitude. It was like
some shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember. It's like, yeah. Anyway.
Someone says they want a breakdown of Hollow or Oasis.
Yeah, I mean, likewise with those projects being gone in the abyss, but I'm sure we can find them on our hard drives. All that stuff. I know they exist somewhere. They might even exist on our Google Drive. We should like look at it. We might have uploaded them, and if I haven't uploaded them, we should upload them.
Well, word. I mean, that's kind of what we got in terms of this production breakdown, and you can always hit us with questions if you want to Instagram DM us or Twitter DM us or comment on YouTube on this video. We'll do our best to answer.
Yeah, and if you have any requests for, different songs you want us to break down, or even have us just hang out like this and like write new music, that might be really cool as well. So who knows, maybe we'll do some stuff like that together.
Who's to say? I don't know.
Who is to say?
Well, right on. Max, should we say our farewells?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. I guess we can play through the song one more time and then call it a day. Thanks for hanging out, everyone.
Feeling is something else, but seeing is worth our while. And we were matching in tinted red. Truth be told, I could have never guessed. And I've been saying all day and night, 'cause there's a thing about us I like. And I've been saying all day and night, 'cause there's a thing about us I like. Can you feel it? I am confident, superpowerful, burning heartstrings. Seeing is something else, we know, but feeling is worth my while. Dancing in the Milky Way, don't let it stop, I wanna be the only one. And I've been saying all day and night, 'cause there's a thing about us I like. And I've been saying all day and night, 'cause there's a thing about us I like. there's a thing about us I like.